Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. I've got another pistol for us today. This one is the Smith&Wesson Bodyguard 380. This one's actually the M&P Bodyguard, and it's a nomenclature that changed in the middle of their production. Some minor changes. The original one was just the Smith&Wesson Bodyguard. Now they quote have them in the M&P series. This one I have one of the first generation style ones myself. I guess second gen. I don't know how they classify them or whatever else, but I carry. I call it my rape whistle. But it's got the Crimson Trace laser on it. But it is a Bodyguard 380 instead of an M&P Bodyguard 380. And some minor changes, not a whole lot. Instead of straight serrations, it's got the kind of the fish scale scallops on there instead. The texture is pretty much the same here. The early versions of this didn't have this aggressive texturing on it. This is technically a first gen. It had some issues and I sent it back to Smith & Wesson. They rebuilt the whole gun for me. The only thing that's left is the steel block inside, which you guys will see here in a minute, which is the actual serialized portion of the gun. Pretty good little pistol. It handles all right. They have a few features on them that are of normally what you'd see in some of the larger pistols. It's not striker fired like a lot of the small 380s. It is a double action only hammer fired type pistol. It does have a manual safety, and so there's some things that a lot of guns in this size don't have, including the the slide stop and things like that. Nothing overly spectacular on them. I know you can get aftermarket sights and things like that, but pretty good little pistols all the way around. I don't have any complaints about mine, and the little ones that I did have, Smith & Wesson took care of me real well on, so we'll move on. Lock your slide back, obviously empty gun. Little takedown lever here. You're going to want to take it and spin it. There's a detenning spring in there, and you wanted to get it to overcome that. And pull your takedown pin. From there, slide comes off. You have your guide rod and dual recoil springs, barrel. And to get to the firing pin stop here that's in this gun, let's see if we can get up close there, that guy, you have to drift this back sight off. So I'll show you that. I'm going to take it off, and then I'll be right back on camera here just to show you. Like I said, rear sight comes off. Normally I use a sight pusher, but these things come out pretty easy. When you're drifting sights out too, it's a good idea to use plastic, aluminum, brass, something that's really not going to mar the sight up, that you can wipe off real easy. I'll clean that up. There's a little plate underneath there, so don't lose that. And that plate is there to retain the small spring and the firing pin stop that's inside of there. And those guys, of course, it'll sit inside here like so. Let's set those aside. From there, to get the firing pin and its spring out, we actually have to drive out this roll pin, and it's an itty bitty bastard. Oh, gotta come out of there. Thumb and finger, you just push in a little bit on the extractor, pull this punch out. That's a 5/64 punch there. And get your extractor, and its spring will come out. And then inside there is a little pin. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a little pin down the side of that hole. What you have to do is push your firing pin in and kind of, I didn't work this thing's in there. Let me see. There we go. Get it to start to come out here. And take some needle nose or tweezers or something and grab it. Now keep in mind that firing pin is going to want to come launching out of there when you pull this pin, so be careful. Your firing pin and your firing pin spring. And then over here, now taking this apart, getting this apart is the really easy part. Putting it back together, not so much fun. Really simple guns, but they're just pain in the asses to put back together. 2 roll pins here and here. That's all that holds the guts of this thing in. There, and I'm going to hold on to the top of this stuff. Pull the punch out. Now when you go to push this out of here, things are going to go springing. Keep that in mind. So you want to have a good handle on it, for lack of a better word. You may even have to give a little bit of a pry on it here. There we go. Not too hard. It's not that difficult, but sometimes they just need a little bit of assistance coming out. It's a pretty snug fit, but not terrible. We'll try and get it out of here without losing just about everything. So, I'll set that aside for now. Mainspring. Oh, there we go. Launched a couple things there. Your safety is held on to that by that one of those roll pins. Your slide stop comes off. It has its own spring which fell in back behind here that I caught luckily, and I'll show you how that goes back together obviously later on. This little spring does come out, and that's the safety detent there. I wouldn't mess with pulling that out if you don't have to. It does come out and goes back in relatively easy, but it's another one of those things I just try not to take out if I don't have to. Let me flip it over. You've got your trigger bar. Let's see. You have this little spring here, your trigger spring. Comes out and it's got that little loop-de-doo there. And then this pin comes out relatively easy. Push on it and it'll slide out. And then your trigger comes out. And then we can push this pin out, which holds in our hammer and strut, and little bar that pushes up on the striker stop. And then you have your ejector here, and it pops right out too. It's also held in by that roll pin. You know, it slides into the frame, but it's held in by the roll pin. Super simple to take apart, man. Super simple. Putting it back together is the hard part. Inside the frame, you've got this U-spring here, pops right out, no problem. There's your magazine release, and that's all there is, nothing else in this frame. In this particular instance, I don't recommend pulling this roll pin out for the hammer and strut. I am going to do it because I'm putting in a trigger kit for this guy, and I'll show you how that goes back in and what the trigger kit consists of. So that's literally all there is to these guns. They're super easy. It's kind of sad that it took me, you know, what, 10 minutes now to even get to that. But that's because I run my mouth a lot. That's it. This is the serialized portion of the gun. And on mine, when Smith & Wesson rebuilt it, this is all that's left over of the original gun. They literally everything else you see here, Smith & Wesson replaced. They even sent me new magazines for it. So good on them. They were really awesome about the whole thing. And yeah, we'll when I go ready to put it back together here, you'll see. Give me a like, a thumbs up, a share. You know, make some comments if you got anything. Take care.